Hey there, you're trying to figure out where your money's going or where you're spending your money as a family and you don't have a way of tracking it. Regardless of the apps, the subscriptions, all that kind of stuff, skipping all that stuff, just taking your exported bank statement and putting it into a nice Excel spreadsheet that computes all that. I'm going to show you how to build one of those here in just a second, but let's first take a quick preview and show you what I'm talking about. This first part just shows how to put a couple bank statements together to get ready to export it and put it in your new spreadsheet. If at any time you want to skip ahead, feel free to do so. The timestamps are listed below. This is an example of an Excel spreadsheet that you download from your bank, your credit card, some organization that's going to spit out all of your personal information about what you've been spending. Notice that everything's in the same month here, but they also have extra stuff in here. For instance, debit and Visa. And you need to have three columns when you're ultimately done: a date, a description, and the dollar amount. Notice the dollar amounts are in negative for debit and positive for credit, so that's a good thing. Date format, we'll get to that in just a second here, but in the meantime, let's clean up some of these columns that we don't need. I'm going to left click on the column at the top here. That highlights everything, and then I'm going to right click on that column to delete that column. Okay, go on to the next column. Since I like the calendar one, that's good. Let's go up to B though, and once again left click and then right click to come up with the delete button. And now I have three columns just like I wanted. However, we're going to make sure we've got the correct format for date, because things may change from bank to bank. So once again, highlight everything with that column, and you're going to go down to format cells, right click and then format cells, and then select whatever. Notice there's a date selection here. Select whatever format you want. So this is up to the individual. I like that format. Okay, so now you have a date column here, the description, no category but a description, and the dollar amount. Great. Let's add one more. Let's say we have another bank. Okay, I'm going to expand this one out a little bit, or back in, clean this up. So this looks very similar. This is from a separate bank or a separate credit card, and once again I happen to have this column that I don't need, so I'm going to delete that. I have the date, description, and then debit and credit. I don't need that, so we're going to right click. Same way, same format to delete it. Go ahead and do that. Once again, I'm going to make sure that the calendar is correct by right clicking on the entire column, format cells, click on date, and then select the format that you want. Alright. Seems pretty simple so far. Hopefully it's pretty straightforward, but all we're doing is combining these two. So I'm going to make sure I'm at the very top here, and I'm going to select everything. Just select what you actually want for that month usually. I hit Control C, or I right click and then copy. Works either way. Alright, so we're going to copy that, and now we're going to go down to the bottom here. First available cell I'm going to click on, and you can either right click and paste, which gives you more options for pasting across here. I like to go with the first one, or Control V. Now the problem we've got here is everything was sequential before, just so happens to be sequential, and now that we've added the second one, it's out of order. So we're going to use a filter option, but first I'm going to insert a row here. So let's go up to that row and hit Insert and then Row. Alright, it's going to pop in a blank row up the top here, and that's good. That's what you want. Alright, come over 3 and let's go all the way down to the bottom to highlight it. Okay. If you do this with the entire column or the entire spreadsheet, it's going to take a little bit longer to process and may bog down your spreadsheet. So just heads up there. Expand this out a little bit, and you can see a sort and filter option. Go down to filter, and that's going to give you the drop down menus at the top here. What that's done is it's organized everything in rows. So Speedway should be 5620 on November 27th, for instance. So let's go through and sort oldest to newest. That should put our 1st of November up here and our 29th down here at the bottom, I believe. Okay, Speedway, just like we talked about a second ago. Everything is still across the board the same. That's what you want. Control C or Command C, right click, copy, whatever you want to do. You get the idea. And I'm going to put this into a new document. To do that, press Control-N. Now you have a new Excel spreadsheet. I like to scroll over here to about the S column and come down about 3 because you're going to need a little bit of space to play with there. You can right click and paste, and I would select the first option. You've got other things to choose from, but I would select the first option there, or you can hit Control V. Select the columns, see how they're all columns there? Double click once you get this particular signature with your mouse. Okay, so it's a line straight up and down and the arrows, double click, it spaces them out, makes them look smooth. Got it? Alright, moving to the left now to B2 roughly, I'm going to put in a new header. So I want month, date, description, category, income, debit, and balance. Alright, those are going to be my headers for my new table that I'm going to be starting here. So I highlight those and I give a couple rows extra there. It doesn't have to be exact. And under the Home tab up here, I'm going to come over here to Format as Table. And it gives me options. Since I'm dealing with money, what better a color than green? Alright, so I'll go with medium, first one, click it. It's going to ask me how do I want to build this table. I like that it's in B2 and it's absolute, so it's not going to change. Absolute is from the dollar signs there. We'll get into that a little bit more. But H4 seems like an awfully small chart. Let's make this an exceptionally long chart. I'd rather have more chart than not enough. So let's put a couple zeros after it and make it 400. Okay, the other thing I want to do is make my table as headers. This allows the top part there, the header, to basically be a title and not part of the table itself when it comes to sorting things out. Click OK and this should expand all the way down. Great. Alright, next what I'm going to do is leave the month column blank, and the date column I'm going to basically transfer it from the right side of the screen over here to the left side. So to do that, hit equal and then click on that date. In this case it is S3. Click enter and it populates automatically. The stuff that's down here, it looks like it's an error. It's not. It just says it's not wide enough. Double click the column up here and once again see how that symbol or that icon looks. Just double click it. Everything naturalizes and looks perfect. Okay. Description, let's do the same thing. So you hit equals, and in this case it's going to be T3. Click enter, and we do not have a category yet. By the way, let's clean this up. So now it looks smooth. Alright, so when we get to income here, I want to make that equal to, and there's going to be a formula here, so don't go too fast here. But if you look IF, so if parentheses, so let's figure out a good logical test. I want to have dollar value over here. Okay, so now if that is greater than 0, which means I have income, it's positive, comma, then it's true. So now it becomes U3. I want to know what that income is now. Show me that income if U3 is positive. In this case it's not, but if it were an income, it would be positive. Next, let's put a comma. So if it's false, I want it to be 0. That's a numerical value. It's not string, so it's going to work out well when we add things up. Put the parentheses afterwards and hit enter. It should not show up anything in that column except for a 0. However, if you go back here, you can see the income column did have a positive and it did register. Great. Let's do the same thing with debit. So it's going to be equals IF quotation and then, or parentheses, and then that cell, the value of that cell, and if it is less than, this is the only difference between the column F and the column G. I want to know less than 0, or what when I have a negative, less than 0, then give me U3. Excuse me, U3. If it's not less than 0, give me 0. Okay, so in other words, if it's an income, I don't want to have it as a debt. Put a close parentheses on that and hit enter. It automatically fills out everything on your table. You with me so far? Okay, let's go up to column now. Select all 3 of these, and you can right click down to Format Cells, select the currency, and I usually go with the first one here. Click OK, and guess what? It puts everything on dollar signs, so now you're squared away. So you've got that set up. Let's go to figure out how to do categories. So what we're going to do for categories now is I need to make a keyword from description and translate it into a category. For instance, I don't know, if it's Subway, I need to make it a restaurant. If it's TJ Maxx, I need to make it clothing, for instance. So what I'm going to do is come over here to make kind of a key. I like to make maybe a light color or something that discerns or just clarifies each of these columns. And while I'm at it, let's just do that for my inputs as well and make it, I don't know, light blue. Okay, so this is kind of a cue or a reminder, so next time I use this Excel spreadsheet for the next month or a next example, I clear out everything in blue and I insert everything in blue to be date, description, and money, just like it is. Got it? So for this one, I'm going to put those keywords that I find in the descriptions. So for instance, AMZN may be Amazon. Alright, and I'm just going to start out with some examples for starters. We're not going to list everything in here, and if you do have everything, that's you're one step ahead, but don't worry about it just yet. Alright, so let's do Subway once. Subway will be a restaurant, and Dairy Queen. Alright, dairy, and you need to put it exactly as it shows over here in the description so that it matches up with the, we're going to index it in a minute here, to be what you want it to be for the category. So that was restaurant that I just typed. Now let's do another one. Let's do groceries. Alright, so let's say you got Kroger. So for groceries, no problem. Let's do Meyer. Seems simple so far. I need to put groceries exactly. If I put grocery instead, to the human eye, we know what it is. We know the difference between groceries and grocery. But the computer does not register that. So I need to make sure that whatever I stick with, whether it's grocery or groceries, it is the same for both of these unless I want them to be specifically different categories. Okay? So this is the idea. I'm not going to fill everything out just yet. I'll get to it in a minute. But I want to give you an idea of this is the array for the keywords that you're getting from the description. And this is the array or the category that you're going to be filling in here. So you're going to get your categories to fill in from this Q column. This gets the tricky part, so bear with me here. We're going to do a search. So search function, it doesn't matter if it's capital or not. Once you put the parentheses in there, you're going to see the menu list that you can pull from. So the find text is we're going to come over here to P1, which is going to be this category over here. We're going to see if there's any of these words over here first, and anywhere between that and P, let's make it P400. Okay. Now, if you hit a comma and then compare it to, make sure you type in D3 and don't just click on that, because this is a table, it'll act a little bit funny. You need to make sure you put in D3 and then close the parentheses and hit enter. We're going to go back here in a second to P1. P1 is going to increment every time we go down unless it's absolute. Right now it's considered relative. So we need to go back here and put our cursor on the P1 and press F4. Do the same thing for P400. It's going to put dollar signs in front of the P and a dollar sign in front of the 4. It's going to make it absolute. So you can refer to these exact cells over here no matter how many times you pull down the drop down menu. Alright, hopefully you're following me here. Next, we're going to add some more stuff. Let's hit enter first. It's going to error out a little bit there. That's fine. We need to make sure that it's true or false by using an ISNUMBER. And then closing the brackets on the end here. And this is just making sure that it's true or false. Okay? So it's proven that it's true or false for each one of these. And we're going to make sure we go up to the same cell here. We're going to keep on adding to this ISNUMBER. The next step is going to be the match. So I'm looking for a match in this array column. So let's put match next at the beginning. So equals match and parentheses the word true, T-R-U-E. So it's looking for the words that are true in there. Hit a comma and then go all the way to the end here. Hit a comma 0 parentheses, and it will error out unless I press F9. And the reason why is because I'm on Microsoft Excel 365. Previous versions won't error on. But this is set up to not accept arrays, and that's why. So press enter, it's going to error out. Yep, that's fine. Next we're going to add the index to it. So I want to type in index, and real quick, kind of a quick explanation of what's going on. I know it's a lot of stuff here, but the match is matching anything over here with this cell, and if it's there, it's going to say true, and if it's true, I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to highlight it in now this index row here, or column here. So now I need to tell it where that index is. So it is Q1 to Q400. You can type that in, make sure you put a comma. And the idea is make sure it compares to the same thing you used over here in the previous search function. So if you used P1 to P400, use Q1 to Q400 over here. Once again, make sure they're absolute so they don't move on you. Okay, press F4 to make them absolute. You got it. You're doing good. And now we're going to hit, don't hit enter yet, but make sure you hit Control Shift Enter. It's going to show you an error, which is fine. Press enter, and automatically, see how it starts lining these up here. It tells me that, hey, the Meyer was a grocery, and I can start adding on over here. This is the beauty about this thing. Now you're going to start seeing some cool stuff. So for instance, if I enter Max over here, I don't even have to enter the whole thing TJ Maxx. As long as I'm not mixing it up with another category, I'm fine. But if you want to type in Max and then clothes, guess what? It automatically populates right over here. Same thing for Lowe's. And you got to be careful too, because I think like Lowe's, for instance, they didn't have an apostrophe in one of the stores that I went to, but they did have an apostrophe in the other one. That's fine, because if you add it or change it to this category over here, this array and this array over here, it automatically comes up to save that way. So the more you use this Excel spreadsheet, the smarter or the more refined it gets. So it works out really good for that sense, that idea. Alright, I'm going to take the next couple minutes here to kind of fill things in and get you started here. So we have, as you continue to use this Excel spreadsheet, you're going to have these two columns grow more and more. And it's great because you can reuse this Excel spreadsheet, and each time you use it, it's already figured it out and knows what HLU stands for every time, and that it's Hulu and it's cable or whatever you want. You can change it to, by the way, if you want to change it to Hulu, you just want to track Hulu because cable's an old name. Great, there you go. Here's what I tend to do. Grab the stuff you've got so far and copy it, Control C or right click copy, and let's just bring it down over, I don't know, about here. What I'll do is I'll do a paste. A filter under here, I can filter it out as well and make sure it's good to go. If you notice, I've got multiple duplicates of, for instance, restaurant, groceries. I need to fix that. So let's go to Data and see where it says Remove Duplicates. Guess what that's for? And it's going to ask which ones. Those are the ones. And it'll tell me I took out 7 and left 16 unique ones there. So that's more work you don't have to do. Great, huh? Alright, so going through here, this gives us our categories now that we can start kind of grading on. You can update these as you go, so don't feel like it's a one-time deal. I'll show you in a few minutes here that these are not hard set. They can change, so if you have another alphabet or something like that starts with A up here, you can insert that or put that in there, bump everything down or move things around, alphabetize it again, and it'll still figure out our totals on the right-hand side. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get a numerical value of the month. Alright, there is an actual feature in Excel that does this, so it's called equal month. So type in parentheses, and we're going to get our serial number or our reference number from the cell next to it. So just click that cell and then type close parentheses. That easy. Press enter and the whole thing should auto-populate here. Great. So what it means is all these dates it's checking for, and it's finding that that first month or that month is going to be November. So that means if we make this May 6th, guess what? There's your May feature, or the 5th month of the year, and that's the current date. All right. So let's Control Z that, get rid of that, and we've got that value. Up here we're going to type in 11 because that's what I'm going to use for my formula in just a minute here. I'll center this just to make it look a little bit nicer. Go back to the home page, click center right there, and then once again double click my columns to kind of clean them up. I can do that here as well. Okay, so they're all looking smooth and nice. All right, so now I'm going to find out the totals for each one of these categories. So on the Amazon column, I want to know what the debit is. So I'm going to click the cell next to it, hit type equal sum if s. So that's SUMIFS, and you can see the menu bar popping up here after I hit the parentheses. So I want to know the range. And there's several criteria we got to go through here, so bear with me here. First sum range is going to be the Gulf or G column, debit. All right. Type a comma because we're going to go to the next criteria range, which will be the month. So just clicking on the tab up here, B, it knows what you're talking about. Click comma again because we're done there. Now go up to that 11 that we typed about a minute ago. And while you've got that highlighted, press F4 because I want the absolute. When I bring this thing down and populate all of these cells, I want it to keep going to that I1. I don't want it to be coming down to other cells. All right. So make sure you press F4 to get absolute versus relative. Press comma. That's going to give us another search criteria here. And then go to the category. So you're going to be using this as another criteria. Comma. And then this word right here. So I'm looking for this word to be how many times it comes up in the category column. And when it comes up as Amazon in here, I want it to register and get that value to add together. So it's a sum. So I'm going to close that out now as a bracket. Follow me here. It's got a big formula, so bear with me here. We're going to hit enter. And that shows me exactly what I spent for Amazon for the month. Bam, $109.45. Okay, now to get this so it registers for all the others, yep, you guessed it. Grab the lower right hand corner here and just pull it down. This will bring the formulas into all of these. It tells me, hey, I spent $136.10 on clothes. And to keep it from getting mixed up there, let's make this a currency column. So you click the K, right click on the column, format cells, currency, and it's automatically selected there. Just click OK. Alright, so if you notice, my income doesn't pop up there. That's one of the reasons I left this blank up here, is so that I can come up here and type in my income. With my income, I'm going to do the exact same thing except my debit. So remember, sum if s, parentheses, instead of debit now I'm clicking income, comma, month, comma, compare it with which month you're in, so 11, and make that absolute, so type F4, comma, and then compare that with the category, which is E, hit comma, and I want to compare it to that cell. Close the parentheses, alright, bear with me here, hit enter, and it tells you how much you made. So automatically, yep, I made $2,031, and then I got some extra stuff here from interest paid from the bank, whatever it is. You can do that with, I don't know, put in there a retirement fund, 401k, whatever kind of money you're making or have income on, maybe you have a rebate, you can adjust that now. So I'm teaching you how to fish here, not fishing for you. That gives you an idea of the capability of this Excel spreadsheet here. It's very versatile. Okay, to figure the balance column, what we're going to do is click on H3 or click on the cell that you're going to edit, and of course type equals, use the cell above it. In this case, the balance is what we have typed in there, plus your income column, plus your debit column, and hit enter. Okay, it's going to come back with a value because you're trying to add a string with a numeric, which doesn't work. So this is where you would type in your previous balance. So if you had $505.43, type that in, hit enter, and everything auto-populates. So this is where you would put your previous balance. So everything's complete now. You've got everything, the basics down. You want to start making it look a little bit nicer, maybe work on the aesthetics a little bit. So what we can do is scroll to the left here, this extra column here. This is just a buffer. So I like to slide it over a little bit to kind of make it look a little smoother there. The month is something that I still need in my formulas, but I don't need to see. So I'm going to get rid of that as far as a visual. To do that, click up here on the column with your left button, right click, and you're going to hide. Do not delete it because it's still important. So just hide it. You've still got everything across the board looking good here. Come over to income, and I select what I want there and put in my all borders, or if you want to make a thick border around here, that's fine. I also like to kind of put an extra background just for color in there, just to make things highlighted, and do the same thing for my export. Now I'm going to add more things as I go for debit things, or more categories. So I'm just building a little bit extra space here, and I'm going to build more cells later on here. And once again, go up here to your, we'll make it kind of like a red because that's where the money's going out. You can do whatever you want, but that's just what I like to do. Alright, so there's an idea of how you can reference your stuff. So let's say you're going through and you want to break it down. You've got each category the sum of, and for instance, restaurants. I know that I spent $92.52, but I'd like to know where I spent those at. I don't want to look through the entire list over here. So what I can do is come up to category, select the drop-down menu, turn the select all off, and if I scroll down, I can click on restaurants. So in other words, I want it to show only the restaurants. So now if I hit OK, it minimizes our stuff down to our restaurants, and it shows us that I went to Subway, Dairy Queen, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, and these are the dates and everything I did it on. So I can tell, hey, this is how much I spent on debit for each one of these places. So this breaks it down into each column. Now don't panic, this stuff doesn't show up right now because I've got it minimized. To bring it back, do the same thing. Click on the drop down for category, and if you hit select all instead, just click OK, and everything will return. Okay, so that's how I'm able to go through and see exactly what I spent just under that category. Alright, let's talk a little bit about how to use this tracker. What you can do is if you have something new, for instance, here's a column down here for Shutterfly. If I want to be able to add that to my list or categories, I need to come over here to this array field. In this case it's the P field, the P column, and I'm going to type in something that is part of that line, for instance shutter, S-H-U-T-T-E-R. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but it's enough to discern that nothing else is going to get confused with Shutterfly. And in this case I want it to be pictures. That's the category that I'm going to have is pictures. So anytime it sees shutter, it's going to put it in the category of pictures, just like it did there in my column. That's great, but on the other hand, I don't have pictures up here anymore. So if I type in pictures and hit enter, it automatically brings it down into I lost $22.17, and in this case it was only one listing in my column, and it would normally add them up though, but it shows how much I've got there. If you notice too, this is not in alphabetical now. P definitely does not come down at the bottom, it should be up here by phone. So if I go up to sort and filter, click A to Z, should I expand the selection? This is a natural thing that Excel does. No, I'm just going to continue with this current selection. Hit enter, and you noticed that it rearranged some of these numbers over here. Automatically everything's updated, so that 2217 I had for pictures is now moved here. My restaurant stays the same thing for my security and vacation. In other words, this formula is going to calculate whatever's in this cell here, so it doesn't matter if you alphabetize these or change these at a later date. Alright, so bottom line, just add to it, and then later on you can come back here and alphabetize them, and it'll correct over here in this column. To add another month, because you're going to keep adding onto this as you go here, you can come down here to the bottom of the sheet where it has sheet 1, right click on that sheet, and you're going to move or copy, and in this case you'd create a copy, and it's going to be OK, and you notice you got them, you can slide them around if you want. This one you can name, for instance, November 2022, and then this one could be December 2022 as well. And now they look identical. You can't even tell any difference between them here. But this is your original one, the November one, and we're going to modify now the December one. So come over to the blue section here. Remember, that's our inputs. You're going to delete those. It's going to update everything there. To highlight the next month's Excel spreadsheet, what you're going to do is pull up the Excel spreadsheet itself. You've got everything here. You probably want to select just the month that you're going to be looking at. So do not select November. Select only December. Hit Control C or copy it, and then if you go back to the correct cell that you started with before, in this case it was S3, you can right click and paste. I like to use that feature, and it puts everything in here, which auto-populates over here. There is one problem to this. If you notice, my categories all show 0, and the reason why is if you go back to your formula, it's going back to this I11 box, or the month box, and it's looking for the month of November to report on only what's November. Obviously this is December, so I want to change that to 12. So I'm going to type in 12, 1, 2, press enter, and everything auto-populates to show what I've got for that new month. Bam, I'm already done with my next month. And that's how I added everything to my new tracker. As you can see too, you can keep on adding on here because I can keep going with multiple months, come back to it. And the other cool thing is, if you want to modify this later on, you can actually unhide that month category, and if you put everything in there as the same month for all of the months, regardless of what month it is. So in other words, if you were to type in 12 and get rid of that formula and make everything down here, it would start adding up all the cells down here. And where that's useful is I could add up how much money I spent for the year in restaurants, how much I spent automobiles for the year, or groceries. It's a very useful tool, and all I have to do is add each month. Or if I want to, I can export the entire year from my credit card, my bank, plop it in here, change that month column to whatever it is the same, and make sure it's the same as this number up here for my reference, and it will tell me not just for the month now, but I've manipulated it to get everything for the year. And now I know that I spent a lot of money on a restaurant, or I spent very little money on Hulu. I don't know. I'm just making up stuff, but you get the idea. This is a very useful tool that takes all that data and combines it into one useful tool that I can reference and look at here. This is not a specific tool that has to be done a certain way. This is something you can change, and it's your spreadsheet. You can do whatever you want with it. As a matter of fact, I've got some more videos that kind of add on to it or change things that improve it and make things even more streamlined. So if you have any ideas of what you want to see added to it, leave your comments below. Also, if you have any difficulties with the spreadsheet, let me know as well. We'll see what we can do to help you out as a team and as a group here on YouTube. In the meantime, keep improving your family life. This is Joe Don. We'll see you later.